the prologue, what's happening? He comes up behind her and he's just like, ooh, baby. Hey guys, what's going on? I hope you're doing well. So this week, I honestly just want to go over my wrap-up video for all the books that I read in August, which was the Romance Readathon, which I just want to say really quick, if you were a part of that, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed yourself. It seemed like people did. I really loved it. I'm really happy with how it came out. And I just wanted to say thank you because it was my first one. So I very much appreciate you. And I hope you come around for next year because I've actually already started planning it and I'm jazzed. I'm very jazzed. I'm really excited about the theme, so. Anyways, for the books that I actually read, I didn't read as much as I thought I was going to because I was working, but that's okay. But the stuff that I did read, it's like all over the place, man. I did have some crazy little novellas that I read because of course I love weird ass stuff, but I'm fully gonna spoil those just so you know. I'll leave those for the end for those of you who are interested in hearing about like the absolute insane smutty plot lines of these things. But I had a wild ride with those, and then my fantasy romance books that I read were kind of a meh. And then my historical romance, banging, man. Highly recommend you read them. This one in particular, highly recommend you read. Anyways, I wanted to go over those, but before I do, I have two little announcements. One being, I hope you're excited, but one being that April from Happily Ever April and I, we're gonna start a book club. All right, and it's not going to be a serious book club. It is a weird-ass romance book club. That's what we're calling it. This is literally all those insane, smutty little novellas that just make you laugh or just kind of make you horrified in a way. The ones that just make you feel a lot of emotion that you can't take seriously at all. That's our book club. All right, basically the way that we see it is it's like a Friday night hangout. You know, you've had a long week. Let's get together on Friday night, read some weird stuff, and have a good time. Okay, we're gonna host like a read-along, reading sprint style sort of thing, so that way we can all read it together and talk online together. If you can't make it though, it's gonna be in the Hideaway Discord. We'll have a little section, so that way we can still chat if you can't make it for that day, and we'll still discuss the insanity because some of these books are gonna be wild. Just to give you an idea, the first one that we're gonna read, because we're high-class individuals, is Whorenado. Yeah. I think that tells you a lot about our book club. I don't think I really need to say much more. But the only thing I'll say is it will be 9 p.m. on Fridays, one Friday a month. And we'll post like the links and everything in the Discord and then over here on our YouTube channel. Okay, so I hope to see you there. The second announcement that I want to make, this one I'm kind of nervous about, but I originally wasn't planning on doing this for a long time, but then my husband convinced me that I should learn the platform and things like that. So I wanted to let you know that I am starting a Patreon, and if you would like to join, awesome. If you don't want to join, that's totally cool, man. I really want to make clear, like really want to make clear that you just watching me, whether you're a subscriber or not, you're so supportive already, okay? So I really want to make that clear. I love you a million times over. If you can't or you don't even want to join the Patreon, totally cool, okay? Totally cool. I don't like taking money from people anyways. I'm so much more of a giver than a receiver, but my husband's just telling me, like, just freaking start it. Learn the damn platform. So I am. I won't go over all of the perks in it. I'll leave a link down below, but I just want to name a couple of them. One being that I hate taking money from guys, so I'm making sure that you guys get stuff. And I'm very artistic if you don't know. I like to do art and I love to read, so I'm kind of combining the two in my Patreon. I will make a bookmark and a sort of like screensaver that you can download, so you'd have to print out and cut the bookmark yourself, but I'm going to design it and you'll get a free one every single month. I do plan on doing more readathons over there, like 2-week stints, and there'll be one in October for the very end that I'm calling a very Burton readathon, which it's all Tim Burton themed, which I know isn't really about books, but I love pop culture, so that's getting mixed in there too. And I'm gonna make a bunch of artwork for you guys where each prompt that you finish, that will be based off of a movie that you can associate with books, don't worry. You will actually get that download of that screensaver, or you can turn it into a bookmark. Okay, so that way, regardless of what country you're in, you're always going to get something. That was really important to me. And then the last major thing that I want to mention is you will be a co-creator of the Romance Readathon, which will always remain free, by the way. The Romance Readathon, you don't have to be a Patreon member in order to join. That's always free for whoever. But if you are one of my patronies, then you will be a co-creator, and we'll actually discuss things monthly. We can meet up and you can like vote on artwork, and you can help me decide on what the teams are, what their abilities are, what games we will be doing, all sorts of stuff. And I will make sure to, in the announcement video, to list you as a co-creator, and then in the Discord, you will also have like a badge that lets everybody know that you're a co-creator of it as well. Okay, there's other things on there too, like you guys have first access to the books I'm getting rid of, and you will only have to pay shipping. There's going to actually be a Discord, like a Discord thing that you and I can chat, and we could do read-alongs together, all sorts of stuff. I'm hoping that you feel like it's worth $5. I don't know. I don't like taking money from people. Like I said, I'm a giver. I'm not a receiver. So I'm very much like, no, don't talk about me. You take it. You deserve this. So I hope you feel like you guys like that stuff. But again, want to reiterate, you are so freaking supportive already just watching me. Okay, so I love you for that. All right? And you still have access to me through the Hideaway Discord and the book club. That's all free. I don't want you feeling like I'm trying to go behind a paywall. Okay? So you still have definitely ways to get to me. Okay? Am I doing a terrible job at selling that? Oh my God. Yeah, I'm sweating right now. Okay. Anyways, let's move on to the books. How about that? So let's carry on. All right. My first book that I want to talk about, this was one that I read with friends, and I was excited, okay, because I think in my last wrap-up video, I was telling you about Lion. That was I think it's called The Fairies of Oz. I don't even remember. That's how forgettable this is. But the Fairies of Oz series, and I read the prequel, Lion, loved it. It was gory. I loved the villain, the witch. She was headless. A babe, okay, I was obsessed. So freaking excited to start the series. But then I read Tin, which is the one where the Tin Man, literally, he's an assassin, so it's much more darker. Oz has it's almost like a dystopian version of Oz, okay? And Dorothy comes back, she's much older. Tin is basically, he's hired to get Dorothy and take her to the Bad Witch from our Lion prequel. That's basically the storyline. It was terrible, like real bad. It was just not popping, man. The premise, solid, really, really cool. Execution, not quite there, unfortunately. I'm giving it 2 stars, but like just between like the writing and just the repetitiveness of it and just kind of the lame quality of the romance, it's not really there. You're very much being told that it happens, and it just happens instantly. It's supposed to be enemies to lovers, but you really don't get that vibe, or at least we didn't. I'm sorry, I know you recommended it to me, but I didn't like it. I still love you. I didn't like it though, okay? I'm really, really sorry. I didn't. But it wasn't great. There was some gory parts which were cool, but really just the romance between Dorothy and the Tin Man was lame. It was just really lame. And the way that it was written was it was so hard to get through. Oh my God, we basically finished it. We all wanted to DNF it pretty quickly, but we were just like, let's just hate read it together. So we kind of just shat on it the entire time. So yeah, I don't recommend that one. The next one, this was also another one. It's not bad though. This one's kind of hard to describe, but The Wicked and the Willing, I told you I was so excited for it. That was the sapphic vampire one. That's very much Interview with a Vampire sort of style. It was like a 90-10 sort of plot to smut ratio. And this is the one you also get to choose your ending, which is so neat. But I didn't finish it. I'm not DNFing it though. This is actually the first time I've had a book like this. It's very serious, and it's not bad by any means, but it's slow, but it's intentionally slow. I definitely feel like this is a character development, character-driven book, and you're really getting the details of who they are subconsciously through their actions of mundane tasks that they do throughout the day, okay? So it's not bad. It's so hard to describe because it's the best word to kind of say is you feel like it's boring, but your attention is still held. if that makes sense. It's very, very slow. It feels like Interview with a Vampire in the sense of when you watch that movie, you don't have all these crazy action shots that's just like making you eat popcorn a bunch. It's just a very dramatic story, and you get a feel for the emotion and who these characters are. So you keep watching. It's just like that, you know? And I'm only about 20% in, but the villain, our English vampire, she has an elegance to her, but you definitely have this kind of undercurrent of fear of her, even though when you're reading her, she does seem very polite. So the author did that very well. You know, she didn't have to make her an outright evil person to make you realize she's the villain. She kind of very sneakily wrote that in there, how you get this eerie sense off of her, which I think is awesome. But I can tell this is a book that is going to take me months to read because it is very dark, for sure, and it's slower. So I kind of want to take my time to absorb it. So I wanted to let you know on that one. The next one, I'm going to go over my 2 historicals, I think, and both of them were good, which is nice. One, way better than the other, in my opinion, but the Elizabeth Hoyt one, Duke of Desire, this is a Beauty and the Beast one. It's hilarious because he has a scar, but this man looks perfect. But it's very much a Beauty and the Beast. His face is really scarred, and it definitely has some dark undertones of what happened to our hero. And our heroine is definitely very much like, she's the sunshine for sure. She's a very strong character. I like her a lot. Still very feminine though. But the whole storyline's actually really gripping. He saved her from this cult, and he ends up taking her and convincing her that he needs to marry her. He's a duke, by the way, so that was a beneficial marriage. But he convinces her that she needs to marry him so he can protect her, because now that she got away, the cult's just going to want to murder her. So it's a forced marriage sort of thing. You see their relationship sort of grow. You see how his damaged past has really created this hard exterior in him, and he really wants to let people in. And he actually even mentions like she's like his light, and he wants her to come in, but he's also scared that he's gonna ruin her, all this stuff. So there is some really great emotional side to their relationship, but also the exterior sort of action-y plot of this cult coming to get them and murder her, murder him, is really gripping as well. So the author, Elizabeth Hoyt, did a great job at like holding you on each sentence. Really enjoyed that. And she throws you in the action right on chapter 1. That's my sort of historical romance. My only issue is her intimate scene style is not for me. Mainly being that typically historical romance, I feel like there's kind of the softer words that are chosen, and they almost speak around the body parts to kind of give you the image in your mind. And it's not as jarring when you just see words like this. So this is the stuff that I don't like. So I realized that in my historical romances, I need to stay away from that. And I've actually never experienced that before. She's the first one I've read with a very distinct intimate scene style. But overall, I gave it 4 stars because the plot line is really, really good and it's gripping. But after that, oh, this one, you guys, oh my God, I love this one so much. Catherine Sutcliffe. What a babe. This is my first book from her. It's called Shadow Play. This is the one I was telling you guys about, that it kind of reminds me of The Mummy. And that held up, actually. That really held up. They're on this adventure. They're in the Amazon. And there's this like really, really bad guy. It has to do with rubber seeds, but he murders people. He takes advantage of people. I believe I don't know if you'd really say slaves per se, like he has slave labor, but he's an outright evil freaking man, okay? And our main hero, he got away from all of that in the beginning of the book. Again, chapter 1, right in the action. So good too. Very, very good. But he got out of the situation, and they're definitely trying to come after him to kill him, but he's been able to kind of stay under the radar. Our girl, her father dies. Her father actually was associated to this really evil guy, and she doesn't want his reputation to be tarnished because it will tarnish hers. So she's kind of trying to fix the whole situation that could rip apart her reputation. And she brings the hero into this to try and get to where the evil guy is. if that makes sense. So there's this whole adventure of trying to get to the bad guy, try to kill him, get some rubber seeds, all this stuff. But they have to go across the freaking Amazon. They have to go across the Amazon River. They're fighting monkeys, they're fighting snakes, they're fighting people. They're literally running through a bazaar. They're getting chased. They're all sorts of stuff. Like, it feels very action-y. Like, this is a good chunk of this book. You have a lot of action scenes in it, and they're well written. And I have not seen that in historical romance. I'm used to the focus always being on the romance, and that's still definitely a very heavy part of this book. But the author, Catherine, knew how to write like scenes where you're feeling rushed, you're feeling like on the edge of your seat. So I loved it. I loved it so freaking much. Highly recommend this one. Highly, 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 highly recommend. This has actually put me on a kind of like hunt for more action-y sort of romance, which I didn't really know existed. So if you know other ones like this, please let me know. Also, the other thing that reminded me of The Mummy is their sort of relationship feels a lot like Rick and Evie. She's very this proper English miss, and he's an American, and he's very sarcastic and full of himself and cocky, and they kind of butt heads a lot, and their banter is so good. There's a scene where like they're on the veranda. I literally stopped at one point where I'm reading. I don't know if you guys do this. I'm very emotional when I read. I'm very expressive. But they're on this veranda, and there's like a kissing scene and all this stuff. But I've never read anything in the Amazon. And he does something, and I literally stopped. I'm reading. I literally stopped, and I went, I like it. I don't know. I'm weird like that. But anyways, highly recommend that book. But moving on from there, my last book that I read, this was To Bleed a Crystal Bloom. This was for Hannah's Spelled by Romance book club, which was a lot of fun. She has another one coming up here in September, but it was To Bleed a Crystal Bloom for August. And this is kind of a weird book to discuss because I hated the romance, but the book itself, I liked. So it's a weird one to talk about, but basically, this is the one that was the dark Rapunzel retelling, loosely kind of based off of Rapunzel. And there's definitely more kind of like a dark, toxic sort of relationship in this. It's a series, and you're supposed to kind of watch our girl go from being very young, very naive, and grow into herself. But I don't know. That toxic relationship part was the part that kind of ruined it for me, because that's just not my style of reading. However, I will say that the author nailed it on that. She knew how to actually write that sort of relationship. So I'm not going to knock any points for like it's being poorly written or it's for shock value, whatever. It wasn't like that at all. If anything, I'd actually say, especially if you want to be a fantasy romance writer, you should kind of study this book. This was kind of amazing. It's so weird to talk about. The prologue, oh my God, she nailed it. There's this dark, eerie quality to the atmosphere. There's this gore, which I loved. I absolutely love that part. But she also like peppered in questions that the reader would have. So you're really trying to figure out what's happening throughout the book, and it's making you move through each chapter because you're trying to get that answer. The author nailed it. The prologue feels like The Witcher in great ways, but still has its own sort of feeling. But I definitely got the Witcher essence out of it. And as you're moving through the book, each chapter is done so well. Some of the stuff started to feel repetitive, but even with that, the way that she writes, it's like she carved every single sentence out to make you keep wanting to move along. I didn't want to jump, even though I didn't like the romance. I really just wanted to read the story because I felt the atmosphere, the plot line was really there. The relationship, like I said, was not something I liked, but it was well written. It was well done for a dark, toxic romance. It was great. It was great. I'm giving it 4 stars. I'm really just not giving it 5 stars because I didn't like the dark, toxic side. And so that's a personal preference. But mainly, there was just some stuff that I felt was repeated too much. Like there was scenes that I felt was giving the same information to the reader. So we could have actually made the book a little bit smaller. And the other thing was with that romance, it does feel a lot like you're getting whiplash with the back and forth between those two. But it was wild, man. It was wild. I definitely think I'm going to read the second book. I'm hoping it gets better. I've been told that it does. in the sense of like their relationship. The first one's really meant to be about her kind of growing up, and she's definitely bratty, and I hate bratty characters, bratty naive characters, and that's definitely what she is in the first book. But that's a personal preference. Like I said, it was very well written. Very, very, very well written. Again, I'm going to state it again. If you want to be a fantasy romance writer, you should study the book. You should read it, and you should study it. That's what I've been doing, because she nailed it. She freaking nailed it. But anyways, let's move on to the little novellas that are really weird and crazy, and I'm completely going to spoil for you. Okay? First one, I won't go into the insects yet, but the first one, I don't know why my mind is the way that it is, but I did this with friends. All of these I read with friends, which I would recommend. When you have these books, you can totally read them by yourself, but when you read it with friends, it's just so much better. And this first one is called Bagged by the Groceries. Yeah, it's a smutty novella. You're darn right it is. But this one is just wild. The ending sucked. But essentially, let me tell you everything. But essentially we have a girl, she's coming out of the grocery store, and she bumps into this woman, and this woman is asking for food. I think she's homeless, but she's asking for food. Our girl, honestly, is kind of a bitch, and is basically just like, no. And this woman hexes her and just says, you're gonna get them groceries. And you don't know what that means, and our girl's kind of like, what the hell just happened? She gets home, puts the groceries on the counter. Her husband calls, says he's not going to be there. Sounds like she hates her husband, by the way. And she's upset because it's like their anniversary. And she walks away because she's really upset. The next moment, she comes back in. Her groceries are everywhere. There's yogurt all over the floor. Like, it's just a mess. Someone must have broke in. But then, lo and behold, in walks this vegetable man. Literally made entirely of vegetables. I'll see if I can find a picture. We were discussing it. It was weird. He's got a cantaloupe ass. Okay, he's got a cucumber dick. I think that's expected. His testes first started off as clementines, but then they turned into plums because the writer forgot. So, I mean, this isn't, like I said, this isn't literature. We can't judge too much. He's got like carrot fingers with little like clementine sort of fingertips, little orange slice tips. He's got a ham tongue, weird stuff. Olives for eyes. Like, honestly, when you think about it, disturbing. Really disturbing. And he walks in, it's written in almost like this horror sort of style. And you're like, what the hell is happening? But pheromones are coming off of him because, I don't know. And she starts being like, oh my God, this vegetable man. And, she gets with him. And he's just like, oh, I need to plant my seed. I need to sow your crops or something like that. Some nonsense. Like, the actual, lines in this thing were ridiculous. But they go at it. But by the time that they're done, he basically is just like, I've served my purpose. And then he starts to just fall apart. His lettuce head just rolls back and just thunks on the ground. His eyes fall apart. Oh, the part that got me the most was his tongue falls out. And remember, it's a thick ham slice. And it lands on her back and it just slowly slides down. The cold meat of a ham slice just sliding down. Okay? And his, what he expelled was yogurt. Okay, so now her soil is ready to be seeded. In walks her husband, and apparently now they're all hunky-dory, and then they get it on, so they could maybe start a baby. That's what this was. This was to help make a baby. Yeah, that's the story. That's it. It's, the ending sucked, but the whole thing through it, you're just kind of like, what's happening? We liked it. I gave it 4 stars. Anyways, the next one, this is another one that is wild. I'm going to save the best for last. But this one, it has to do with ants. Because, ants are sexy, I guess. But it's called Honey, I Shrunk Your Cooch. Yeah, you heard that right. But apparently it's another one where apparently the husband's just terrible. And he's a scientist, and he made a shrink ray or an enlargement ray, can't quite remember. And he accidentally shrunk his wife, who she didn't realize it happened all the time. But she literally, she's terrible about her husband. She keeps calling him limp dick Mark and, terrible Mark and some other things, going at it, pencil dick mark, all sorts of stuff where you can tell she hates this man, okay? She feels like she does everything. And when she gets small, she doesn't realize that it happened at first, but she's naked, and the first thing that she checks is her nether region to make sure it's wet, and she checks her boobs and makes sure they're still there, because that's the first thing you think of when you feel funky and you're in this weird place with all these like really tall green things, is that. But then she starts hearing like saw sounds, and an ant comes into view and it's super huge, and she's like, what the hell's happening? She starts running away, but her first thought is, I wonder if this sexy ant is looking at my ass. What? And then he finally catches up to her. He grabs her, puts her on his back, and she's just like, because he's releasing pheromones too, because apparently that's the only way that we can be attracted to these things, is that everything releases pheromones. And she's on his back just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And still simultaneously kind of scared, but basically in a very horny state. And they go into an anthill. There's holes everywhere. He sets her into this hole, but she looks off into the distance and she sees the queen ant, okay? But lo and behold, that ant is freaking dying. The queen, she's like turning black, and like limbs are falling off, and they're chewing off all of the body parts that are dying. And then suddenly she just dies. But her girl, she sees that all the male ants are like all over the queen's body, just massaging her, giving her what she needs, injecting her with stuff, okay? Yeah. But then they carry off the queen's body, and they put the human woman in its place so she can be the new queen ant. And yeah, they're doing stuff again everywhere. Every single hole they mention, including the ears. They made an emphasis to tell you that they're in her ears. They're screwing her ears, guys, okay? Which, if that's every hole, that means the nose too, which, oh my God. Yeah. Everything. And there's ant ooze and things like that, but then all of a sudden her arms start turning black and getting decrepit, so maybe they just got like funky jizz, I don't know. But she starts hearing like names and stuff, and she's, oh my God, I forgot, she's like naming the ants. I forget their names, but she starts just naming the ants, all these weird names, and you're like, what the hell's happening? But then she starts hearing her name out of nowhere, and she's like, well, the ants don't talk, what's happening? She finally comes to, and she apparently is at her boss's office, and she's like getting railed by 6 human guys, and her husband's off in the corner watching everything, orchestrated the whole thing. And she's like, oh, well, I guess my husband's not all that bad. And then it ends. What? Yeah, it was weird. Up until the ant stuff, or up until the human stuff, I was there for it. I loved all the ant stuff because I was just horrified the whole time. Like the ear thing. And then she started dying. I thought they were gonna like chew off her arm. I would have loved that. I would have thought that was amazing, but that didn't happen. It was just a piece of work, honestly. But I enjoyed it. The ending just sucked. So that's another 4-star weird ass romance. But the last one, oh man, hold on. I'm running out of time. I'll be right back. Okay. The last one here, this is literally like, it rivals Shakespeare, okay? This author knows what the hell she's doing, okay? She understands what type of novellas she is writing, and she goes there and she gives it to us, man. But this is called Mating with the Mantis. So it's a praying mantis. And we have a scientist, 5 stars, by the way. Easy 5 stars. Probably one of the best things I have read all year. But it's Mating with the Mantis, and we have this scientist. She's a doctor, and she's been in love with praying mantises her whole life because she had like pet ones when she was a kid, and she thought it was sexy even when she was 9. So that's just, ignore that part. But she goes through having all of these praying mantises, and she's like turned on by them. And by the time she's 19, her first one was named Gordon, so you know, she rails a guy named Gordon, and she does get off, but basically after that, it's become harder and harder for her to get off. So she has to ask people to like wear a praying mantis costume, wear a praying mantis mask, paint themselves green. All of these really terrible things where I would just feel bad for the guy. Like, how degrading is that? Okay? But you're going through this whole storyline. You find out that she's just really struggling to get off. She touches herself constantly. She's literally like, you're reading this and she's walking through rooms and she's like touching herself. And you're just like, what is happening right now? But she studies praying mantises, of course. And I think she works at like a college or it's a science lab, but they get this Make It Big machine. That is what it's called. Okay? So it's an enlargement ray, but they do say at one point, make it big machine. But the first thought that she has is, oh, I can make a praying mantis the size of me and I can screw it for science, you know? So she's going through this whole process, but before she can be alone with the machine, we're going about her day and she's like, she's doing boring tasks and then she'll go touch herself. Then she does more boring tasks and touches herself. And she's thinking about how this praying mantis is going to be like the answer to all of her prayers and all this stuff. But the writing style throughout all of this is ridiculousness. Like she's walking around and she has strawberry jelly boobs, because I don't know. And it's just the way that it's written, it's meant to be like terribly done, but it's done in such a finessed way. You don't think the author's a bad writer. You actually think she's a good writer because you're like, what? Why would you put this sentence together? You used eyes 5 times in that freaking sentence, and these types of eyes. But it's just, and she breaks the fourth wall, and all of a sudden, like, you're reading it, and then she starts asking the reader questions. It's great. It's so much fun. But by the time we actually get to enlarging our mantis, it turns out that she screwed up because that's not her sort of science, right? So she actually shrinks down and turns into a praying mantis, okay? Like she touches her eyes and she's like, why does it feel like I'm sawing my eyes off? Turns out she has praying mantis hands. But she figures out that she's a praying mantis and she's like, oh God, oh no. And her boobs are gone. Her strawberry jelly boobs, they're gone and she's distraught. And she's looking at herself in this reflective trash can. Just, you know, nuance. But then the male praying mantis that she brought out, he comes up behind her and he's just like, ooh, baby. And they start getting it on. And it's the best sex she's ever had. He's doing crazy stuff. And I won't describe the sex, so you could still read it if you want. But they're going at it forever, okay? Like over and over and over. She's so many O's, okay? Like she's getting off like a mad woman, enjoying every single second of it. And then our male mantis starts like trying to bite her head. She's like, what the heck? That hurts. And he just like keeps going at her head and she's like, what the hell? And she realizes that he's telling her it's time. And if you don't know what that means, the female mantises, while they're screwing, okay, they eat the male mantis, starting with the head, while they're still screwing. Okay, so she's like, oh no, I have to start chewing on his head. So she starts eating him head first, going down and down and down until it's just his abdomen, which is still pumping into her, by the way, so she's still getting those. But she's just having this crunchy little snack while he's going, okay? And it was sad. I actually teared up a little bit, which I know that's weird, but I did tear up a little bit. I'm telling you, this was a 5-star freaking novella, man. But she finishes with him, and there's a bunch of, like, ooze on the floor, and I think it's supposed to be their sperm, if I'm being honest. It's supposed to be the spend, because so many O's, like I mentioned, so there's a ton of juices. And the janitor comes and sees her as a mantis, picks her up, and is like, oh, I'm gonna go put her back into the doctor's office on the mantis wall. But he doesn't know which is the male section, and that scared the hell out of me. Anyways, the janitor doesn't know which is the male section and which is the female section. So he puts her in the male tank, and there's dozens of male mantises. And I have to reenact what I thought. But the end of it is when she realizes that she's in the male mantis one, she's happy. And it feels like if this were a movie, this is how it ends. Like a disturbing smile, like, I'm gonna murder them and screw the hell out of them. You know, so it was fun. I enjoyed myself immensely. So did everybody else. All of us gave it 5 stars. I don't think anybody else gave it anything lower because it deserved every freaking star there. Okay, I do actually highly recommend you read it. It was fantastic. I made my husband and his friend read it. They didn't have the same reaction, but that's okay. They don't understand. They don't understand literature. But anyways, yeah. So that's it. That's what I read. Hopefully y'all want to read some of that. Like I mentioned, Shadow Play, highly recommend. Really think you should read it, especially if you're a historical romance reader, or if you're even fantasy romance and you want to get into historical. Shadow plays for you. So freaking good. And then To Bleed a Crystal Bloom. It's good. It's dark toxic, but written so well. And there's so many questions that the author puts into the reader's mind that you want to keep going to try and find the answers. So cleverly done. But anyways, that's it. Okay, I gotta head out. I gotta go on my vacation. I'm on my vacation right now while you're watching this. But I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. I'll see you later. Again, all the links are down below if you wanna go head over to the Hideaway Discord, or if you wanna join our book club, and then the Patreon too. The readathon's not happening until October, so if you are interested in maybe the readathon and you want to join then, it happens in October. Okay. I know I'm gonna suck at talking about it, but anyways, you have a great day. I'll see you next week. Bye.